It's so weird to me that when people talk about this topic in particular, they say that it's like this subjective thing. And I really do disagree. When you're talking about the current state of a wrestling promotion, just about anything really, but specifically wrestling promotions, I do feel like you can take an objective stance on this and really hone in on the current state and the exact current state of every single one of these promotions. And that's what I'm going to do for you today. If you learned something in this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, maybe throw a comment down below, or even check out the Patreon, whatever makes you happy. Now, the first promotion I want to talk about is probably going to be the one that is the most controversial. I want to lock in on AEW. And I think when we talk about the current state of AEW, I think it is totally fair to combine Dynamite and Collision in this conversation, and I think you'll understand why as we dive in here. Now, the next events for Dynamite and Collision are both listed as Peoria, Illinois, so it really doesn't make sense to separate these when we're talking about this. I think it's because this Wednesday is going to be featuring Dynamite, and then they're also planning to pre-record the Collision for this upcoming weekend because Dynasty is right around the corner. So given all the information that we have, I think it is fair to say that the current state of AEW in its entirety is actually in Illinois. And right now, the temperature there is just over 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is fine considering the season, but it is expected to rain on the day of their next event, which is tomorrow. So all things considered, I could say that the current state of AEW is fine, but it does have a murky future here up in the next 24 hours. Next, let's talk about the WWE, and we're going to split up the brands because you're going to see why it very much makes sense. Even though they're both coming from the UK area, you really have to look at these differently because of the space between the last two shows. Now, while the Raw show was most recently in London, yeah, we can say for sure, even though their next show is in Minneapolis, Minnesota, we can say confidently that because it was so recently, they are somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, so thus not giving them an actual state that they are currently in. We could project where they're going to be in the very near future, but as of right now, I just want to be as accurate as possible, so we're going to place Monday Night Raw's current state in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. But when we talk about SmackDown, while they're also coming from the Europe area, they've had a few days to start their travel. Now, some might say, oh, okay, their next show is in Chicago, Illinois, so we can also place them in Illinois, the same state as AEW, but I think that's a stretch. I don't believe that they would already be set up in Chicago when their next show isn't for several days. Maybe for a PLE, they would need to set up this far in advance, but we have to imagine that during a hockey season and a basketball season, a location like Chicago would have other games they have to have set up by now, and I don't see SmackDown just parking its trucks outside for the next 5 or 6 days. And since they would have already begun their flight, I don't believe that they're going to be somewhere in the Atlantic with Raw. I think it's only fair to place them in their headquarters, which would be Stamford, Connecticut. Now, Stamford is currently experiencing very similar weather as pretty much all of Illinois, but as of today, it is mostly sunny, so I think it is fair to say that in their current state, it is slightly better because they aren't experiencing the rain that AEW is currently in Illinois, but in Stamford, Connecticut, it's really not too much of a different experience, especially if they stay there for the next few days. Now, NXT gets a lot of praise, and I think it's mostly because of their women's division right now, but as a whole, I would say NXT's current state is probably in Orlando, Florida, which is where I believe all of their shows occur, except for when they occasionally travel for some sort of a premium live event. And considering their next premium live event isn't until Stand and Deliver, there's no chance that they would already be setting up for this event, so I think it is very safe to put them in Orlando, Florida, which they're currently experiencing a temperature in the mid-80s, which for some, not so great, but you also have to consider if you enjoy the sun, there's been a lot of rain for the last few days, which could be ruining the experience for the current state of NXT, even though they don't have another show until tonight. When it comes to New Japan, they actually do have a show on Wednesday, so we can get a pretty good, accurate representation of their current state. Now, they are not currently in the United States or in any country that identifies states, but I think it's reasonable to narrow down the current city as a replacement. From what I can tell, their next show is in an arena called Amasei Yamanashi, which is located, of course, in Kofu, Japan. And this is another reason why I think a lot of people seem to think wrestling is in a bad place right now, because this is just another promotion where there's a high likelihood of rain. We're talking a 72% chance of precipitation, and the temperature is only in the low 60s, so there's not even anything to really counteract that feeling. Now, TNA is a tricky one because from what I can tell, and when you go to their events page, it doesn't show that they have any weekly shows upcoming. It says their next show isn't until they are in Las Vegas, and that's not for a couple more weeks. So that's where I'm gonna have to toss it to you guys. What do you think TNA's current state is if they don't have any recent shows and their next show isn't until the 17th in Las Vegas? I don't think they would be already set up, especially because it's Las Vegas. I feel like they would constantly have things going on there. I'm not really sure. I'll toss it to you guys. Now, Stardom is a tricky one, and while it is fair to say that they might actually be set up for their next show, as the next one is actually in a few days, it's showing that the next show is in a place called Shinjuku Face. Now, when you think that, and when you see that, you assume that that would be in the city of Shinjuku. But upon further inspection, it's actually located in Tokyo, Japan. Now, again, we can't do the current state, but I think it's fair to do the city in this context. Now, the good news is, even if some fans show up to Shinjuku, the city, it's only an hour and a half away from Tokyo if you're traveling by foot. But once again, it is expected to be raining, and it's only going to be in the 40s Fahrenheit, of course. Now, don't hesitate to give me your thoughts down below if you happen to disagree. I do feel like I'm taking a pretty objective look at this. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your April Fool's Day. Thank you so much to the patrons that are flying up the screen. I will see you all in the next video. Who's a good boy? You did so good.